Already. And we're now officially live. So thanks for joining me today, Jenna. We're here to talk about all the astrology going on. February's been quite the month. We've had Saturn-Neptune conjunction, eclipse season on top of Mercury retrograde. So yeah, what's top of mind for you today as we're going through all this?
Wow, it's a little bit hard to know where to start because there's so much. Um, but I think in a lot of ways, it's been really interesting kind of going through all of this, like in these phases and paying attention to the different, feelings that are coming up, energies that are coming up, what's happening with people in our friendships and communities, how people are all feeling it, and then looking at all the wild world events that are happening as well has been really crazy.
Most definitely. And yeah, I mean, Saturn Neptune conjunction, those outer planets, whenever they make moves, that definitely has like wide ranging implications on like society and the world at large. But it's also true that those world events are like proxies for what's going on in our internal worlds too. So I mean, a lot's changing in the world, a lot's changing for us internally. So I mean, we can all kind of sense that we're in the cusp of in the midst of some big changes, major beginnings, major endings. You getting that same sense?
Absolutely. And especially because the conjunction at the 0 point was so exact, which we really haven't seen in like thousands and thousands of years. Like I asked ChatGPT to try and find like when that last conjunction was, because I heard some different um, opinions from different astrologers. And I mean, ChatGPT actually couldn't find the one that I heard other people talking about that was like 6,000 years ago or whatever. Um, it really was only able to search back to 1703, where Saturn and Neptune conjuncted in the early degrees of Aries, but not right at the 0 point. Um, so that 0 point is often called the world point. And honestly, I feel like it's just that complete release of all the old and shifting into a new, way of thinking about things, a new vision of things. And so with Saturn, like that super physical, responsible, structural planet, and then Neptune, the exact opposite, with like the vibes of magic and disillusion and spirituality and source and, water, the ocean. Like it's just such a meeting of opposites at that point.
Yeah, Neptune really represents like fantasy, illusion. Saturn represents reality. You do have opposing forces that come together. It's kind of cool. But yeah, also 0 degrees Aries, the point at which it's taking place is another major talking point. I mean, 0 degrees Aries is essentially the first degree of the entire zodiac. So, I mean, after everything that Saturn and Neptune were co present together in Pisces, they were building toward their conjunction, but then moved right into Aries before that officially um, came together. Yeah, that's symbolizing new worlds of major proportions, really. So, I'm right
Yeah.
there with you.
Yeah. And we are totally seeing all of that around us. I mean, if we just touched on, a few of the world events, it definitely seems like there's all kinds of um, realizations coming out about some of these structures and how they haven't been what they've seemed, how corrupt everything has been, how there's been different kinds of, wheeling and dealing going on that none of us have known about that are now being revealed. And hopefully this will be a giant shift. Um, as it all settles, which I think there's still a long time for it to settle. But some of the other things I definitely noticed there was some wild, like, weather events and also space weather events right around that time. I don't know if you track any of like the solar flares and coronal mass ejections. But
Not
been
too
getting,
much.
yeah, we've been getting a lot. We got a few significant coronal mass ejections and solar flares, and also like dark spots on the sun that came into the Earth facing position. There was a few different earthquakes that happened, and it looks like we're going into a new big volcanic eruption today. I just saw it pop in on my notifications as we were jumping on this live that there's some kind of big volcanic eruption going on. So I think that's probably over in Hawaii, I'm going to guess.
So
I'd feel
even
a
nature
little,
itself is feeling all that.
yeah,
Um, One of
exactly.
the big astrology of this week, though, too, is the Mars Uranus square. We'll probably get into that some too, but I know that's a bit of a tense aspect as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that was exact for us this morning, right? Around like
I think it's
8.
tomorrow.
Is it?
Yeah,
Maybe it's
February
tomorrow morning.
27th.
Yeah, the 27th. So yeah, tomorrow morning, I think. I like,
We're getting this call, I think February, or I think Mercury just officially went retrograde. So
hmm
funny that we happened to schedule this conversation right when that happened. But yeah,
I know. Well, to be honest, I have to say I'm a little bit excited to have this Mercury retrograde with everything
I'm too
else.
actually.
Yeah, I feel like Mercury retrograde gets such a bad rap,
It so
but
does, yeah.
yeah, but if you sort of pay attention to the cycles and you know exactly what it means and you kind of are preparing for it, I feel like sometimes it can be a much needed kind of a respite where we can slow down a little bit, like pause on some of the contracts, paperwork, stuff like that, and just go a little bit more into reflection and figuring out what it I mean, we're all probably feeling the big change energy, and it's just felt really like go, go, go since
Yeah, this is a moment to catch your breath. Something I
yeah.
think about all the time is like we wouldn't be getting the transits if we didn't need them. And yeah, this definitely
Ah,
feels like a much needed one after, because yeah, Pisces is the sign where Neptune and Saturn just departed from. So now we get
mhm.
this Mercury retrograde to kind of review and sweep things up of like all the movement that's been happening in this part of our charts and this part of our lives.
Yeah, and I think that the sun actually conjuncts with the North Node today as well, right? In, Pisces as
At some point, I know I have all my dates in order right now, but yeah, at some point that's happening.
yeah, I think
Um,
it happens at some point today, like, right after the Mercury retrograde started, and, even though Mercury can be a little bit at fall, in Pisces, or maybe a lot at fall in Pisces,
yeah,
and fall and detriment, I guess, but, I feel like since it's right next to Venus, which is, a very magical vibe in Pisces for Venus, and then with the sun in the North Node, it definitely feels like it's really a moment to kind of realign and reconsider these new visions, these new ideas. With Venus there, I guess, in more in the direction of like partnerships and finances and, what we're building, what we're creating. Um,
absolutely. Yeah, Venus exalted in Pisces, wonderful for connecting, building relationships, tuning into love, and especially coming off the trine to Jupiter in Cancer, exalted Venus, shining exalted Jupiter is very special alignment we had this past week. That was on
yeah,
February 22nd or something like that. Um, so yeah, a lot of things going on, and it is a moment of coming together, realizing love, and seeing how we move forward from here. Yeah, Mercury retrograde, our brains not be might not be working to their highest potential, but it's more like tuning into the body, tuning into the heart. So I mean, I think during this Mercury retrograde cycle, especially while Venus is still in Pisces, it's more about getting out of your head and turning up the volume of your heart, right? And your gut, your instincts.
yeah, absolutely. Listening to our intuitions and honestly, for me, sometimes I feel like when we're out in the physical world, like doing all the things that we have to do to make life happen, it can be really distracting. Um, and so within these retrograde times, especially in this kind of magical Piscean, swirling vibes of the energy, it's really nice to just sit down with no intent behind it and just feel what we're feeling. Like I usually feel drawn to do a
Yeah,
little bit more meditating, a little more time in nature, and just give myself that space to just sort of just feel life because sometimes it just comes at us, and we're just like handling each thing. Um,
exactly. No, I always think during a Mercury retrograde is when I have my best meditation sessions. And so, like a beginning meditation is really just sitting in silence, just being present, sitting in the moment, not trying to go on phone or escape in a myriad of ways. That was really something that became an issue with Neptune in Pisces over the last decade was a means of escapism, not only through like attention, social media, but various other ways as well. So now with the Mercury retrograde, probably an opportunity to kind of come back to silence as a way to tune into the energies.
yeah, yeah. I definitely have been feeling the pressure vibes as we move towards this Mars Uranus conjunction, though. And I'm a little curious to watch the events. I know we were mostly talking about the Saturn Neptune conjunction, so we will be jumping ahead a little bit when we talk about that
Oh
square.
yeah.
Um, but I'll be really curious to see how the events of the world unfold in the next couple of days as we go to that direct square.
Yeah, I think that's a potential signature for some conflict, especially with Iran and some of the things that are going on there. But yeah, there's
Oh,
certain sparks that are going on all over the world. On a personal level, that Mars square Uranus is kind of a signature of breaking free from some sort of limiting circumstance or situation. It's kind of harnessing the inner rebel within.
yeah, which I love that energy. And I feel like, yeah, I feel like in many ways we're just what I do love about what I see happening in the world. I see a lot of like-minded people starting to come together and starting to realize that these world structures of authority that we were relying on
Yeah,
maybe aren't the answer to everything anymore. And so I see a lot more people starting to step into their inner authority and starting to listen more from the inside and not as much to all of that outside chaos.
100%. That's definitely one of my key themes I've been noticing and tracking with kind of since like the Neptune Saturn conjunction in Aries is definitely a signature of that. In my eyes, Aries being such a kind of self starter, self identifying, blaze your own trail kind of sign. Does kind of have that signature of like, tuning out the crowd, tuning in within, and like building your knowledge based on your own lived experience and things like that. I think that's all. People coming together has been another theme going on since Pluto's entered Aquarius for a few years now. So I think now that we have these other alignments starting to take place, that's starting to build and build and build, which will
Yeah.
continue to build with Uranus going into Gemini in April, and then Pluto working together with Uranus pretty closely in a trine formation. It is beautiful to see people coming together, realize the strength in numbers as the cracks of our foundations of like the elite start to be disillusioned. Essentially, yeah, our systems haven't been serving us to their best potential, and the cracks are starting to show more and more. People losing faith in the system, but that's also harnessing. That's also helping us to come together and build something new.
Yeah. Yeah, it's almost like for the longest time we got so out of touch with these natural cycles and natural rhythms, and we just built our own systems and our own structures and got very reliant on those and then distracted from more of like what it used to be human, of just connecting with others, connecting with nature, you know, just general awareness. I think everyone you know, is coming much more into an awareness, a bigger awareness of what it is to be human, where we're
Yeah,
at in our world, and then where we want to go in our world. And that's really exciting about watching all of this unfold.
I agree totally. That's been another theme since kind of AI's come out, which has been closely tied with Pluto and Aquarius. Is like seeing what AI can do, sort of makes us rethink like, okay, well, what does it even mean to be human again? It is coming back to that those grassroots sort of thing. And I know sure like relationship dynamics are a big thing. You can make the arguments of like a work life balance, people working too much to afford to pay the bills. There's a lot of trends and that's interesting to watch that are coming up along with that theme of like what does it mean to be human and what does it mean to be human again at this 2020s decade and 21st century.
Hmm.
But what are the key themes that you're kind of seeing? I know we kind of talked about with Venus and Pisces, Jupiter and Cancer, reconnecting to like love, community, care of the people around you. Is that kind of a key theme for you as well?
Yeah, I've definitely been seeing and feeling a lot of that. And also, I feel like a lot of us are being brought back to a bigger faith and trust in the direction of things being guided, being um,
Yeah,
guided by source, guided by a larger pattern. Um, and I find that to be really exciting because,
absolutely.
like you were saying, that every astrological transit that we get it because we need it for our development. So especially right now with the sun in the north node and Mercury in Pisces
Yeah.
and Venus all in that spot as Saturn and Neptune have just passed out of that spot, I feel like it's giving us this sort of last look back at those big spiritual, huge picture. Like, why are we here? What are we here for? Like, what's the highest octave of humanity, of like what we want to step into in this new vision, this new world? Um, and I'm encouraged by how many people are feeling that energy, even if they don't know where it's coming from.
Yeah. I think there's a fair amount of like the uncertainty that can like drive you crazy or even like fearful. And there is something about finding some sort of spiritual inkling or spiritual awakening in the wake of crisis like that. So I think that is an ongoing thing that we're seeing. I've definitely been seeing the drive towards something spiritual or religious or something of that nature since the North Node has been in Pisces. That's been a theme for me as well. Yeah, the amount of like conversations I've had about like God and beliefs and everything around that since the North Node and has been in Pisces has been really relevant towards that. Jupiter being exalted in Cancer and other water signs, also another signature of that. So both of those are going to transition this year. The North Node will go into Aquarius in June or July, and Jupiter also will move on to Leo in the end of June. So how can we kind of hold on to that as we start to move out of water and into fire, kind of carry spiritual ideals into a more action embodiment of our everyday life?
Yeah, I think that's a great way to put it. And I think, you know, this year overall, like when you look at the astrology of the whole year, it seems like such a transformational year for all of us in general. And
Yeah.
I'm really kind of excited to see when the North Node does do that shift into Aquarius. So, you know, the sign of innovation and rebellion and community and society and, you know, flashes of insight, genius, all of those things. I'll be really curious to see how that shift feels to everyone, you
Oh,
know,
yeah. And we
where
did
we
just
get.
get a preview of that with our first eclipse in Aquarius.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like that was a little bit of a preview. I don't know. How did you feel about that eclipse? The energy felt a little bit disruptive and, challenging with some of the interactions that I had in my life. How did you feel with the eclipse energy?
Definitely. So, yeah, so the eclipse talking about is on February 17th. We had our first eclipse in Aquarius. So right now we're kind of in what we call eclipse season, which essentially the two craziest 2 weeks out of every 6 months is sometimes how I look at it.
Mhm.
Um, I mean, it's almost hard to separate between Aquarius eclipse, Saturn Neptune conjunction. There's just so
Yeah,
much
there's
astrology
so
going
much.
on.
Mhm.
Yeah, in mid to late February. So the eclipse itself, I mean, I know personally I've just been like um some degrees of like tired and fatigue, which is a common eclipse symptom. Like eclipses, like we get every month we get a new moon and a full moon, right? Every 6 months we get the eclipses, which is essentially like a new moon and a full moon, but like times 10 or even like times 100 the intensity.
Mhm.
I don't know if you think about it like that. Um, so I mean, there's definitely cool trends of, the disillusionment of our systems that are no longer serving our highest good, the sort of cracks of the foundation of the elite class. But there is a sort of realization of like, we need to step up and be our own leaders in a way. But then the talking about the Aquarius and Aries working together is understanding that there's a lot of change to be had. Um, Way more than any one person can do. So I mean, Aquarius is about coming together and strength in numbers. I think the Jupiter and Cancer is helping us connect with that on like a smaller scale, like one to one, just taking care of the people around you basis. So I mean, the eclipse itself, with any eclipse, it is kind of draining, tiring. It takes a lot out of you, but there is hope to be had. And I think with the Mercury retrograde in Pisces season, it is kind of a bit of a slowdown to rest, recover, recuperate, reflect on everything we've been through, really since Neptune was in Pisces the last like decade or so. But then when we hit to Aries season, Mercury retrograde ends on March 20th. That's the same day as the equinox. Aries season begins. There's going to be a lot of like forward moving energy. March 20th onward, and then April we're going to get a stellium in Aries. That's going to be a lot of energy to like move forward, full throttle, foot on the gas pedal. Because actually, once right now the only retrograde planets are Jupiter and Mercury. I believe Jupiter
Mm-hmm.
goes direct on March 10th or so, and then
Yes, I think you're exactly right. March 10th.
the then Mercury goes direct on March 20th, and then we have about a month and a half of zero retrograde planets. So end of March, all of April, beginning of May, that no retrograde planets is a unique signature of full forward energy. So I'm kind of looking at this moment of time of this is kind of a time to lean into the slowdown. I've talked about like even when you know that like Mercury retrograde's coming, it's really hard to like fight through that. Mercury retrograde is a slowdown. There's almost no way around it. So I
Mm,
do try to lean into the slowdown. But then yeah, once that Mercury retrograde ends in about a month or so, that's when it'll be time to move forward full throttle. So I think I answered
yeah.
a few questions there, but what are your thoughts there
Yeah.
between Aquarius eclipse and the next couple months?
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. That if we think about this, um, when we get to March 20th and we get to that equinox point, then that's the sun basically stepping into that zero Aries point. So we know at that point it's going to be the gas pedal down, full speed ahead. And right now we have this little window during Pisces season just to find a way to relax into the slowdown, find a way to feel out the energies like what's coming up. For me, I've actually been feeling a lot of energy to purge things out in my life as
Yeah.
well. I've been doing lots of purging, decluttering, clarifying. I've been going through some of my old writings and stuff and like sort of like, I don't know, I've been revisiting the old stuff to get ready for when we get to that starting point on March
But
20th. And
I think that makes total sense. I mean, the Pisces part of our chart went through so much, and this moment of time is really about like processing that closing of the chapter. I know when Neptune first went into Aries, there was a bunch of like grief coming up. It's like because Neptune, Saturn, these planets changing signs do carry a lot of weight with it. And there was something heavy about the past is now firmly in the past. So like as much as we talk about the excitement of like new worlds, kind of closing that door behind you and realizing that the past is now firmly in the past does come with some grief, some time to process all that. So I think there's been more so, in the last month or so, but there's definitely still lingering around that feeling of grief and all of that to process. Because, yeah, what rising sign were you? What house is Pisces in your chart?
I'm Capricorn. And so Pisces is the second house in my chart, I think.
Capricorn. Do you use Placidus? Would Aquarius be second house? Capricorn first house, Aquarius second house, Pisces third house?
Hold on one second. I actually have a chart here that I can. Um, I have to close everything out to get to my chart. Let's see. So let's see. Pisces in my chart. Oh, yeah. Oh, I was totally thinking about the wrong thing. So, Uranus is
Yeah.
the one that's in the second house in my chart. Yeah,
Oh, in your
you're
natal chart.
in my natal chart. You're totally right.
But yeah, you just had the eclipse in your second house.
Mm-hmm.
But
That's
Pisces,
what.
that's all happening in your third house.
Yes,
So I
that's
mean, for you, that makes me think the third house being like everyday communications probably has something to do with like your expression of self almost. With everything that's been happening with Neptune, Saturn leaving this area we chart.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
For me, I'm a Libra rising. So Pisces is my sixth house of physical health and work routines. I know that's kind of, especially why I've been, it's like my body's been like physically tired. So I've needed to really lean into this rest period to not only recuperate my body, but also to find the day-to-day routines that work best for my work and what I try to do. So yeah, based on someone's chart, that's really how you pinpoint the kind of area of life. I don't know if anyone watching right now wants to let us know your, I think we have 2 viewers, wants to let us know your rising sign, maybe talk about the Pisces part of your chart and how that's affecting your life. I
Yeah.
see. I know when I'm on my phone, I can see like the people or like the usernames using right now. I just see the number two. So I know there's 2 viewers, but I don't see their names or anything.
Yeah, let's see. Uh yeah, I'm trying to look on my phone, but it's not showing me the names of them either. Maybe that's because it's your live. So,
Right.
that
Mercury retrograde. Technology is not going to be working.
yeah. But I do feel like, for the people who are watching this now and watching this later, you can always do a transit chart for yourself on astro.com with all of these big conjunctions for, like, normal people who want to just look up their chart and see, like, "Oh, where does this Saturn-Neptune conjunction hit in my chart? Where does this hit in my chart?" On astro.com, they let you do a free transit chart, and so you just put in your birth information and you put in the information of the transit and run the chart. And then if you take a look at what house it lands in, then, like we were talking about, you can get an idea of where you're going to feel it a lot in your own life.
Indeed. Or
Yeah.
ask one of us
Yeah.
for potential astrological guidance. Yeah, are you currently offering birth chart readings, or what's the kind of current state of your astrological practices?
I am not doing birth chart readings at the moment. I am actually I wouldn't necessarily call myself a full astrologer, although I've been following and dabbling in astrology for probably like, I don't know, 15 years at least. Um,
Oh, yeah.
it's something I would love to get into more. I definitely pay a lot of attention to my own birth chart, and I'll always ask friends and I'll look at people's birth charts for them, but I definitely don't consider myself to be a professional astrologer because I have a lot of other constraints on my time. Like, my Gemini moon just loves to read and study and absorb in everything. And, like, I wish I had all the time in the world and that was what I could spend my time doing. But sadly, in the physical world,
Relatable.
yeah, there's a lot of other stuff going on. So I don't really do readings, but I love astrology and I pay a lot of attention to it because it feels like such a great tool to kind of help us understand some of this energy that we may be feeling all the time, and then also the actions of people around us. Like, people who don't follow astrology, just don't have that warning of how they might be feeling.
I've been thinking a lot about that with this current like eclipse season, everything that's happening, and there's so many people that have gotten sick. And I think my views on like even just something like getting sick has like evolved. Like I don't always think like, some people say like the flu is going around. I don't mind always think of like infectious disease, but I think of like, oh yeah, eclipse season is here. It's that Neptune conjunction has happened. You really need to like rest and not push your body, or because if you like overexert yourself, that kind of strain can like push your body to sickness. So I mean, I still see both sides, but now you mentioned the Gemini moon. I'm a Gemini myself, so I understand that kind of concept of like one moment you're here, one moment you're there, as well as that insatiable curiosity for ever learning.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe we could get into origin story. So, how did you first get into astrology? And you said 15 years ago. Was there some kind of why behind astrology that got you into it, or?
Somewhat. So, growing up, one of my significant, I would say kind of like a soul mother, she wasn't in my life for a long time because she passed away when I was pretty young, but she was really into astrology and she was a really important person in my early life. And so even though I didn't directly learn about astrology from her because she passed away when I was too young, but
Mhm.
just from talking to my mom thinks that because I was really close with her, I just sort of, I don't know, I've always been into astrology, but when I had kids, um, I have 2 very sensitive Cancer daughters,
Hmm.
and so I started getting more into astrology because I would notice, like, every time there was a full moon or ever even, like, the new moon sometimes, like, there would be these giant dramas, and I would try every way I could to, like, get around it, like, not have conflict, like, plan for things, and I started
It's
being
just
like,
kept out there.
"Yeah, what is going on with the energy of the world?" My oldest daughter, we had done her birth chart when she was born, so I knew she was the Cancer and she was really sensitive, and my
Uh-huh.
youngest daughter was the one like, she literally in her chart has, her Sun in Cancer, her Mercury and Mars in Cancer, Jupiter in Cancer.
Oh
She has
man,
so much Cancer, and so I started realizing that the Jupiter in Cancer thing might be why she was so overly sensitive to everything because it's such an expander of everything, and then Mars has that fiery, like, aggressive, volatile energy. So it just helped me to start understanding, and then
how
I
to
could
raise
be
your
a little
child
more
better.
compassionate around it. I'm like, "Oh, okay, this is really frustrating, but, you know, we're in the full moon or we're leading up to the full moon, so I should expect that she's gonna get really dramatic and there's gonna be issues." Um,
Yeah, that's one of the great ways to use astrology to help insights on how to raise your kids. Oh, to understand anybody really. I think that's best a practice best served to like help you understand yourself better, but as well as understand others.
mhm.
And then yeah, you mentioned your soul mother person was originally into astrology, and then I imagine even after she passed, that learning with astrology was almost like this way, like connecting with her.
Yeah. I mean, it almost just felt like one of those just it was so natural to go into that direction. I still, you know, think about my soul mother, Sherry, and talk to her and meditate with her sometimes, and I feel like we have guidance, even from the spirits of people who have cared about us. So, yeah,
Absolutely. And
I feel like
Jupiter in Cancer itself can be a gorgeous signature of something like that. I know the water
yeah.
element is kind of associated with spiritual inclinations or kind of just intuition, but also memory. And that's something I think
Mhm.
about with a former mentor of mine who's passed. It's like she lives in my heart now,
Mhm. Yeah.
kind of with us every step of the way.
Yeah. How long have you been doing astrology and what brought you to it?
Yeah, it's fine. I got into it in like 2022. Um, I think that was the year I found out, like, I'm a Libra rising before I even like knew what that meant. It was just like, I just had some friend who randomly like looked up my kind of chart on astrology cafe astrology. I always forget which one,
Mhm.
which way that goes. Um, but yeah, it was 2022 was an interesting year for me. That was the year I graduated from college, and then I took off to South America for a couple months right after graduating. And then I was actually applied to teach English in Spain. And I was going through that process of getting all the things I needed, visa and everything. And then right before I was supposed to go, I just had like this weird visa complication. I couldn't get my visa in time. So I essentially like the whole kind of trip. Well, I was going to teach English in Spain for like a year or upwards of a year, probably something like 9 months. But I couldn't get my visa, essentially canceled the whole trip. And I was like, kind of like, what's happening or how is this happening? And since it kind of coincided with my beginning stages of learning astrology, that 2022, there was a Mars retrograde in Gemini. And for me, as a Libra rising, Gemini is my ninth house. I mean, I'm also a Gemini sun, so it's also kind of affects me personally. But having a Mars retrograde, I remember Mars was in Gemini for like 9 months that year. So when Mars goes retrograde, if it's in one sign, it can stay in one sign for like 9 months. And Mars retrograde is particularly problematic, especially kind of for me. I actually have Mars retrograde natally, so
Hmm.
might not impact me as much as other people. But yeah, the ninth house is the house of foreign travels and educational pursuits, and it's kind of funny. I had this kind of opportunity to go teach English in Spain, and then just like weird events prevented me from doing that. And I was like, "Whoa, this Mars retrograde was happening in this part of my chart." So it was kind of my first little big life event that I kind of
You're like, oh,
saw in
wow,
the astrology.
really see in my chart that this was just meant to happen.
Yeah, exactly. So,
Yeah.
yeah, there were some things to come to terms with, like, okay, yeah, this is not the path I'm supposed to be on. There's, other opportunities. So, but yeah, I also at the same time was learning all about my own chart and seeing, how it reflects who I am and what I think about myself. I'm like, oh yeah, I am these things. So it's kind of just validating from that perspective, like who you think you are, like your own identity. And that's probably the main value proposition I get from like the first when I think about how I use astrology, the first thing is like self knowledge and like coming to terms with identity or like building an identity, understanding your kind of potential and how to best use that. And then secondarily, it is like the ongoing cycles, the timing of everything, the activations, how to prepare for what's coming, or in a similar way that you would based on the weather. So I kind of think of astrology as space weather. That's why so many call it like a
Mhm.
forecast. So it really just helps to plan your day, your week, your month, your year differently, whether it's sunny or rainy or snowing, something like that. But yeah, that was how I first got into it. And then, like the Gemini I am, it became something of like my new obsession. And now we're going on 4 years of studying.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. So more recently, I kind of come from a finance background. I got a finance degree in college. So for the last couple of years, I was in the kind of trying to blend the two, like finance and astrology. But at the beginning of 2026, I made the decision to it was like over time, I was like losing interest in finance stuff and like gaining interest in astrology. So it was like the ratio of that was kind of like skewing. And then at the beginning of 2026, I made a decision to just rebrand my newsletter and go all in on astrology.
Oh, that's awesome. I love that. I mean, I feel like this year is kind of the perfect year to have made that choice and made that step because I feel like with all of the I don't know, I feel like the astrology this year, a lot of it feels very karmic and very fated to me. Maybe that's our, north node at the end of Pisces just helping us to like see the bigger picture and like look what that direction is like on the largest, most, connected to our soul mission in life, the frequency of
Yeah.
where the collective is going. Yeah, I noticed a bunch of different things about, like, looking at the whole astrology of the year, that, like, a lot of the significant transits fell on other days that was, like, for example, when the eclipse fell on the same day as the Lunar New Year, and,
Right.
uh,
Yeah.
there's just a
Yeah.
bunch of different things like that this year that it just feels like sort of a portal year, you know?
Yeah. I see that totally. Yeah. The year of the fire horse starts and ends with an eclipse.
Mhm.
Kind of an
One of
extra special
right?
year. A little
Yeah.
bit. Yeah. I mean, yeah. The that tends to happen since the eclipses happen every 6 months. The eclipses come into Aquarius. I think Lunar New Year is usually an Aquarius new moon. It's always the second new moon after the winter solstice. So I think yeah, the Lunar New Year is always a Aquarius new moon. So I think every 6 years, no, not every 6 years, every so often, yeah, that does
Every
end
so
up being
often.
an eclipse.
Yeah, it's
Or
partly that
9 years, every
I
9
look at
years.
a lot of different, tracking systems. Personally, I just find it kind of fascinating. So I follow, like, the galactic Mayan calendar. Obviously, we're all stuck with the Gregorian calendar, so we see that.
Right, right.
And I pay attention a bit to, like, numerology and stuff too, as far as, like, where things fall and how all of that comes together.
It's
So
kind of
it's
all these different systems saying something special about the current time we're in, right?
yeah, pretty much like every single system, you can see interesting synchronicities with this year, even to the sense of like, you know, um, the month of February, when you look at it on the calendar, the first fell on a Sunday, and the 28 days of this year, it's just one perfect month, with
Yeah.
like first on the Sunday, the first day of the week. Um, and then, like, just a bunch of different things. When you looked overall at the year, it definitely seemed like every system was pointing to this year being a pivotal year for each one of us in our personal development for our
Yeah.
soul mission in the world, like what we really want to be doing and what our highest path is going to be. And then also for the world with all this Aquarius energy, like rethinking, where are we going and what are we
Right.
shifting to? And like, what would our highest vision be instead of just saying, well, things are never going to change. It's always been like this and it's always been like that. I feel like this year really brings us some powerful energy to question all of those things, to get in touch with our own inner authority and really listen to that over a lot of those outer voices. And then to really connect with others that are on aligned paths so that we can start building that on a larger scale than just ourselves.
100%. Yeah, not astrologically speaking, looking at the astrology of 2026, I think a big of the biggest like activations were February and July. I mean, kind of including eclipse season that kind of runs like February into March, July and August. But yeah, February we noticed the Saturn-Neptune conjunction, which is a once in 36-year event. That is one of the New World signatures. Kind of what you're talking about since Pluto's been in Aquarius. Mainly like 2024 through 2044 is when Pluto will be in Aquarius. That's quite the revolutionary signature. And so
Mhm.
Pluto's really starting to finally feel settled and at home in Aquarius. Um, and now we have all of these other outer planets moving signs. Neptune into Pisces, Saturn, or Neptune into Aries, Saturn into Aries, Uranus into Gemini later this year. Those are some major signatures. They're all going to align in July. That's what's so special about July is Pluto will be at 4 degrees Aquarius, Neptune will be at 4 degrees Aries, Uranus will get to 4 degrees Gemini, and Jupiter will get to 4 degrees Leo. They're going to make what's like the fire air basket, which is really even another unprecedented astrological signature, similar to how you're talking about the Saturn Neptune conjunction occurring at zero
Yeah.
Aries, something that hasn't happened in thousands of years. That's kind of another one that really is unique in its own
Mhm.
right.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very exciting times that we're living in, and I just find it so fascinating how we can see it all written in the stars, and then
Yeah,
we watch all of that in life unfolding on the level of, like, as small as in our personal lives and our feelings and, our sleep and all of that stuff, and then on the largest levels of, like, looking at, how the sun is acting, how the volcanoes and the earthquakes are acting, how, all the structures of the world are acting. Like, we can see it everywhere.
indeed. The signs are there. And I think the Mercury retrograde in Pisces makes it extra personal. We start to see it within ourselves as well.
Yeah. So if we think about, like, I know we touched on it a little bit earlier, but just giving people some ideas of how they can move with flow through this
Yeah.
next little phase. Um, yeah, I'd say just know that going inward is going to help you with all the answers. And even if you don't have a meditation practice, just finding a little window in the day of like 10 minutes or something that you could carve out, that you could like sit out in nature, sit on the ground, close your eyes and just breathe and just feel. I
Indeed.
mean, I don't do anything particular when I meditate. A lot of times that's starts it out for me is just sitting, grounding, stabilizing my spine, taking some deep breaths and just feeling myself as a living being and then connected to everything around. I feel like making some time for that within the next 3 weeks is gonna be so helpful to people with being able to hear the signals of what's coming in for them within all of these
Indeed.
wild changes in the world.
Indeed. Yeah. I agree with that. I kind of talk about like meditation 101 is really just coming into silence. So everything you just said, but even if that feels like a whole thing, like you're technically meditating if you're just like brushing your teeth, but you're in quiet. So like the more you can just find quiet, find those moments of quiet, you're essentially meditating. And that's what this next month really calls for, as well as, yeah, resting your body, all of that. Yeah,
Yeah.
we didn't really talk about the March 3rd Virgo eclipse. But yeah, that's so essentially we're in the middle of eclipse season, which does have to do with a lot of energy surges, energy drainages. So that kind of has another spike on March 3rd and then once we get into there, we start to come back to more of our regularly scheduled programming. I don't know if you had any thoughts about that.
Yeah, I was gonna say, what are you thinking that we're gonna see within this March 3rd eclipse? I actually have been super busy and haven't even had any time to do the chart for that yet. So that's gonna be my next thing that I look at a little bit more in depth, but I haven't done it yet. Have you taken a look at it? And
A little bit. I wrote, yeah, my last piece I wrote on Substack was kind of a hybrid eclipse season, Mercury retrograde horoscope. So I actually did horoscopes for all 12 signs on the Aquarius eclipse on February 20th, but also the Virgo eclipse on March 3rd, as including the Mercury retrograde from starting today into most of March. So if
oh,
you're watching this, check that out to get the
yeah, I'll
rundown
have
on
to
that,
go
not
check
only
it.
for your sign.
Mm.
Yeah, but no, I mean, I guess I'm more thinking about it. It's almost just like, I mean, it's partially like all of this astrology in my own personal chart is kind of like taking so much out of me that like I know I just need to like rest and recover, especially as a Libra rising, an eclipse in Virgo for me is in the 12th house. That's kind of one of those signatures that I look at like, oh, that's going to be very tiring. I know I like 12th house being like the house of isolation. That is one of those things that like I'm definitely gonna like, step away, not really commit to any responsibilities and yeah, just kind of go with the vibes from there. But I mean, yeah, South Node, Virgo eclipse. Since the South Node's been in Virgo, it is kind of letting go of, you know, not only the details, but also like over criticism. It was funny the day the node switched, when North Node went into Pisces, South Node went into Virgo, like Mark Zuckerberg canceled fact checking on like his platforms or something. Do you remember
Oh,
seeing that?
huh.
Yeah,
I don't think I did see that actually. What's
yeah,
going
it was pretty interesting. So that South Node and the Virgo, North Node and Pisces dynamic that's been playing out is almost like, yeah, like not citing your sources or like North Node and Pisces being like, my source was like the dream I had last night or something like that. So yeah, we talked about kind of the call towards, religion or spiritual something or other with the North Node in Pisces. A South Node of Virgo is kind of going like away from some kind of details or systems to rely on like intuition. And then once we kind of like process all this, come back with something more concrete to put in place once the North switch. I don't know. How do you kind of think about it?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me, and I feel like, for me, that I've been feeling it a little bit like weird little inklings that pull me back to some event of the past and make me think of it in a different way, and I wonder if that's some of that
Yeah.
South Node energy starting to build up, that, like, weird little synchronicities of you're thinking of this person and then they suddenly call out of the blue, and then have the conversation that's not exactly what you want it to be, but then later when you think about it, you're like, "Oh, it all makes sense." It kind of like came around full circle and it felt uncomfortable and awkward or whatever, but then I realized that if I do things a different way, then, I'm moving forward into a new direction and a new way of managing these emotions or managing these challenges. That's some of the stuff that's been
Yeah,
coming up for me.
that makes sense. Yeah, Virgo is kind of a sign of like high standards or high expectations. I kind of
Mhm.
think like a bit of the earth element, Capricorn and Virgo are both kind of like not always like satisfied or always looking to optimize or improve. I think something with South Node and Virgo can be about like recognizing the value in the present moment and the present version of yourself, the present moment, present version of things. Um, Kind of appreciating that and recognizing that although there are a myriad of ways to improve things, my current version is also a beautiful version.
Yeah. Yeah, I think Virgo can sometimes bring a little bit of like a anxiety, like stress element a little bit because it gets caught up in so many details and needing everything to be perfect. And
Right, right.
so I've been trying to remind myself to let some of the perfectionism go and
Yeah.
to,
That's a big, yeah, South Node in Virgo is like perfectionism. I think with all the airy stuff, it is kind of like, not trying to overthink or be overly perfect and just leaning into messy action, putting one foot in front of the other. making steady
Yeah,
progress.
exactly. Just starting somewhere and then recalibrating and calculating as you go, but just not being held back by the perfectionism or the need to be completely ready. Um,
Exactly.
uh,
And with so many of these outer planets with much longer kind of cycles, we are kind of at the beginning stages of, not only like a rebirth, new worlds, everything like this. So we're kind of finding our new normal. And so it's like at the present moment, it's almost like not only what is normal, but it's like there's no like right or wrong way to like respond or move forward. So it is almost like, in action, because Virgo is ruled by Mercury, um, can fall prey to kind of analysis paralysis. So not, doing the over analyzing thing and just moving forward with messy action. There's no need to be right or get anything perfect.
yeah, absolutely.
So I expect all those themes to come up with March 3rd, Virgo eclipse. Yeah, South Node is about releasing past lives as well. So certain things from the past coming up that highlight that, or well, even coming up so that you can like release it and let it go. It's kind of the thing
Yeah,
to move
exactly.
forward from.
Yeah, yeah. When I think about this upcoming Virgo eclipse, I feel like maybe this is sort of our chance to rethink and let go all that past stuff. Because, like we were saying, we're in this little bit of a slowdown, like reflecting on things, like seeing where things are landing. So, in a way, that feels like that's going to be the gift of this next eclipse that we come into, is that, you know, the most powerful thing is just to let things go. Like, you can rethink
Mm.
them, you can, like, move through them, you can feel them in your body again, and then you can just release them and be like, "Well, that's what it is. We're letting it
Indeed.
go." And then what's gonna be unfolding on the other side?
And the Mercury retrograde in Pisces happening on that same axis is helping us to move through the grief so that we can let things go. So letting
Absolutely.
things go can be hard, but the
Yeah.
process is here to work through it.
Yeah, I think one of the things I would totally say is let yourself feel all the feelings, because
Yeah.
I'm sure we're all gonna be feeling a lot of feelings.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Pisces feels a lot, and yeah, eclipses are major activations of a lot of feelings.
Yeah, it's gonna be intense, and that's a part of the gift of it, is we get to re-feel that intensity and reprocess it and then just release it, because all this new stuff, it's not quite there yet. Everything's
Right,
still a little bit foggy and, like,
right.
you
And so
know
that's how we lean into faith, essentially. There's
exact
uncertainty, but find a vision for like the ideal version of your life, how you want things to unfold. Have faith in the vision and just take the next step that leads you to closer to it.
Yep, that's exactly right. And it's really exciting time when you think about it, like,
Oh,
I feel like we're just living through one of the most amazing shifts, like just an
oh yeah.
era of shifting. Like, who knows what the world is going to look like in 5 years? Time is passing so fast and everything's changing so fast. And
And yeah, I know plenty of people that hear that and get more of like anxious feelings versus like excitement feelings. But um I agree, no, it is an exciting time. It's
well, and more of
uh,
that anxiety may be coming up around this upcoming eclipse. So we may feel a little bit more of
right.
the pressure, stress, anxiety this end of this week and going into the beginning of next week in general.
Yeah.
Because, like we were
Eclipses
talking
do have
about,
that.
yeah, with the Mars square Uranus, that's also
Right.
like a really pressure building kind of a feeling. So that might make people
Right, right.
be feeling a little more stressed and anxious. So I guess, like you were saying about the faith, to my mind, where astrology helps us is that we can remind ourselves that we're feeling that pressure because of all of this stuff that's happening. And then the gift of that pressure is that um, it's bringing the change that we need, especially with the North
Mhm.
Node so clearly right there with everything. Um, these changes are for our growth. These changes are like to help us onto our soul path. So if we can
That's
find
fine.
the faith, like I can move through this with flow. I'm going to feel the feelings and then I'm going to release them so that I can open up for what the next new thing coming in is. I think that will really be our superpower as we move through it. Um,
Exactly.
yeah,
Even if you have like faith that everything will turn out okay, like that is, more than nothing.
absolutely. And on the side of not related to astrology, but just related to our mindset is so powerful. I was hearing about a study this week, a clinical study over 30 years done at Harvard that reliably says optimists live like 10 years longer than pessimists.
Yeah.
So for those of us who might feel the stress and anxiety a lot and think that we're like, being good citizens of the world by letting that stress and anxiety guide us, in a lot of ways, we give ourselves power when instead of letting the stress and anxiety guide us, we step to that feeling of like, well, it's all happening for our growth. So how am I going to move through this as smoothly as possible, but then learn the lesson that I'm being offered? Um, and just tap
Mm.
into that faith instead of letting that pressure feeling make us anxious and afraid of what that future's going to be.
Yeah, beautifully so.
Yeah,
I think, yeah, when Jupiter retrograde ends, you have that next few months of Jupiter direct in Cancer that is going to help us kind of reconnect to those positive parts of embodiment and healing and faith.
I'm really looking forward to that, actually. Really looking forward
Same,
to the
same.
energy coming in.
Same, same.
Yep.
Well, sweet. I think this was a lovely conversation.
Yeah.
Anything else do you have on the mind?
No, that was really awesome. I loved talking about everything.
Me
And
too.
I'm definitely going to go back and reread your last Substack
Oh,
cuz
yes, thank you.
yeah.
Yeah, I think I started to write the kind of Saturn Aries, Saturn Neptune. That's kind of my next one coming out. It's almost just, yeah, way too much astrology to write about everything all at once.
Oh, there's so much. Yeah.
Yeah, the eclipse season, Mercury retrograde. Yeah, that was my last piece. Definitely a lot of good stuff there. And
Nice.
so, yeah, so anyone watching, subscribe to Jenna if you haven't already. And I also have things astrology related
Yeah,
to do
absolutely.
there.
And let's definitely stay connected. This was super fun.
Absolutely, yes. Thanks for coming on. Pleasure to speak with you. And yeah, we'll be in touch soon. Have a good rest
Yeah,
of the
thanks
eclipse
for having me.
season.
Such a pleasure.
All right. Bye, everyone.
Take care. Bye, everyone.